Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday, it's November 18th. Today is day 409. I've been doing these daily updates via video for 409 days since October 7th of last year, seeking to consolidate news sources from throughout the Arab world, Israel, the United States, trying to understand what's happening while also using updates from on the ground as information that will provide resources that allow us to know how to pray, that inform our work as we continue to advocate for an end to all violence, that all actors engaged in war and conflict would lay down their arms. We're calling for a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire. So the updates from over the weekend: an Israeli airstrike killed about 70 people in northern Gaza. Over the weekend, an earlier Saturday strike on a school in Gaza City at a refugee camp killed 12 people, according to medics. A Turkish diplomatic source told Reuters that the reports that spoke of the Hamas office moving to Turkey were incorrect. Hamas members visit their Turkey location from time to time, but they have not relocated there, according to Israeli news sources. There was a UN aid convoy of 109 trucks of food supplies that was looted over the weekend in the Gaza Strip, according to UNRWA. They said Israeli authorities continue to disregard their legal obligations under international law to ensure that the population of Gaza's basic needs are met and to facilitate the safe delivery of aid. Israel is responsible for the aid convoys until they reach their intended recipients. The finance minister in Israel, Smotrich, told the army radio that the supply of aid into Gaza and the lack of IDF control over its distribution are bigger failures than the October 7th Hamas attack. He then requested to go back on the air, clarifying he did not intend to make that comparison between October 7th and the distribution of aid. In a party caucus meeting in the Knesset later today, Monday, Smotrich said, quote, "In order to return the hostages, we," referring to Israel, "need to occupy the entire northern Gaza Strip," while informing Hamas unequivocally that if hostages don't return, we will exercise our sovereignty and stay there forever. At that moment, Hamas will have the motivation to keep them, meaning the hostages, alive. Relatives of the hostages held by Hamas and other groups in Gaza and pro-hostage deal activists protested near the Prime Minister's residence in Jerusalem today. They said that the hostages will not survive the freezing cold of winter in Gaza's tunnels. Today, there were severe alerts. I got them on my phone, warning of flood warnings. It poured, absolutely poured in Israel today. I was on my way to Haifa. I also spent time in Ramallah today. I started my day in Jerusalem, then went to Ramallah, then Haifa. I'm now back in the occupied West Bank. And there are warnings of flash flood warnings for Gaza. And when you think about the millions of people who've been displaced that are just only intense, the idea of flood warnings is beyond disconcerting. In the West Bank today, the U.S. imposed sanctions on Israel's Amana settler organization and 2 other groups and 3 individual Israeli settlers. The Treasury Department announced that today, saying that Amana is a key part of the Israeli extremist settler movement, that they maintain ties to various persons previously sanctioned by the U.S. government and its partners for perpetrating violence in the West Bank. Israel will issue draft notices. I talked about this over the weekend to Israel's ultra-Orthodox community. The Defense Minister Katz announced that on Friday. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu's aide, who allegedly leaked classified information to foreign press in a bid to influence public opinion about the hostage negotiations, his aide allegedly leaked classified information in a bid to influence public opinion on hostage negotiations. And that was in a court release that was published just yesterday. Today, I mentioned I was in Haifa. That's considered one of the 10 mixed cities in Israel. That means that Palestinian citizens of the state live side by side with Jewish Israeli citizens, in addition, of course, to other ethnic demographics and religious groups. So there are 10 mixed cities in Israel. Down one of the hallways at the University of Haifa today, the walls were plastered with posters from different hostages who were taken captive on October 7th of last year. More than 240 people were taken. 140 of those were released in the first hostage deal. It's believed that perhaps 70 or so may still be alive in Gaza, 100 still being held there. The posters have red borders on them. They say kidnapped on the top. And you can tell which hostages have already been killed because their posters have black angled lines on the top right quarters indicating that they're no longer alive. And it just was a really harrowing experience to walk down this hallway, and I couldn't help but be reminded of all of the deaths of so many people from October 7th to the hostages who've been killed, to the more than 40. You know, the number now of deaths in Gaza has surpassed 43,000 people in Gaza. It is just atrocious. I mean, you think about how many people have been killed over the last 12, 13, going on 14 months. We must continue to work diligently to make the killing stop. The settler leader, Daniela Weiss, told Israel's Channel 13 that she took a field tour of the Netzarim corridor. That's the corridor that divides the North Gaza and South Gaza, where she plans to establish Jewish settlements. When asked about Netanyahu's objection to resettlement of Gaza, she said she's not worried. If it's unrealistic, we'll make it realistic, she said. And if it's not approved through the standard channels, we'll just make a way. In Lebanon, Hezbollah fired at least 100 rockets on northern Israel today. Israel, the IDF Defense Forces intercepted 2 drones launched from Lebanon. Several people were lightly wounded. A rocket fired from Lebanon hit a residential building in the northern Israeli town of Shfarim, killing 1 woman and wounding 30 others. She was the 47th civilian casualty in Israel killed by rocket fire from Lebanon since the start of the war. On the 16th, over the weekend, the Washington Post reported that senior officials in Lebanon are reviewing a U.S.-backed ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah. The proposal is based on the resolution from the UN 1701. That was what ended the war in 2006 between Israel and Hezbollah, calls for Hezbollah to withdraw from South Lebanon. It says only the Lebanese military and UN peacekeepers would operate in the region, which borders with Israel. Lebanese officials were expected to respond today or tomorrow. It's said that the conversation is progressing. One Lebanese lawmaker said that it's negotiating with Israel is like trying to negotiate while discussing a draft, quote, under fire, while receiving fire, and Israel is seeking to impose its conditions. Amos Hochstein, who is the White House envoy for the U.S. overseeing efforts to secure this agreement between Israel and Hezbollah, was supposed to go to Beirut tomorrow, but his visit has since been delayed. And Lebanese interim Prime Minister Makati has said that his government's responding positively to the ceasefire deal, but that there are still issues that need discussion. He said the goal is to reach a deal as soon as possible, but that there's still unresolved issues. He's eager to discuss them with Amos Hochstein. So we don't know when. Amos Hochstein's now coming to the Middle East, so we don't know when that will happen. Waves of Israeli airstrikes continue to hit Beirut day after day over the weekend and today. Over the weekend, they killed Hezbollah's top spokesperson for the head of media relations. That funeral happened today, and it was reported that Israel continued to bomb Beirut, where the funeral took place. An Israeli airstrike late today on Monday struck a neighborhood of Beirut that was close to the UN headquarters, parliament, and the prime minister's office, several embassies with no prior IDF warning. Iran, families of American victims of the October 7th attacks sued Iran yesterday, allegedly saying that it was the single deadliest massacre of Jews to the Holocaust. So American victims from the October 7th attacks are suing Iran because of it funding Hamas. So Iran is being sued for the October 7th attacks for bankrolling Hamas by American families who lost loved ones on October 7th last year. Yemen's Houthi forces attacked a vital target. They are saying in Israel's city of Eilat. Eilat is south on the Red Sea. And just a couple international updates. Pope Francis said that Israel's attacks in Gaza should be investigated to determine if they might meet the legal definition of genocide. That's been reported by Italian media, according to a book that's coming out next year. I believe that's written by His Holiness Pope Francis. And Israel's conduct in Gaza is consistent with the characteristics of genocide. And UN Special Committee report released late last week said COGAT, which is the coordinating body that works in the occupied territory, denied that Israel has used hunger as a weapon of war. And Religious News Services published an article about how Arab Americans got their message across in the recent presidential election that they would no longer be taken for granted. One Palestinian American who's a Christian said, even though we have paid a heavy price, the Council on American Islamic Relations conducted an exit poll of American Muslim voters right before the election on the 5th and 6th of November. Listen to this. The poll found 53% of Muslim voters around the country voted for Stein, 53% for Stein, 21% for Trump, and 20% voted for Harris. A little more than a week after the election, this is directly from that RNS article, some Muslims have raised the alarm over the president-elect Trump's cabinet picks, including Arkansas Governor former Mike Huckabee as the ambassador to Israel, former Florida Senator Mark Rubio as Secretary of State. Both are avid supporters of Israel's war on Gaza. But Muslim voters going forward expect Donald Trump to uphold his end of the bargain and pursue peace immediately in the region. May it be so. May it be so. Continue to pray and to work toward peace. There is a lot of work ahead. In the name of Christ.